Guys, I think the fans, the Jimmies and the Joes, all kind of agreed that Northwestern is probably that team that's going to be most up against it this year. The Northwestern Wildcats coming in at number 18, maybe a coin flip between Northwestern and Purdue. I'll talk about some things that I really like with the Wildcats, and we can get into that. But the Wildcats, without a doubt, will post their hopes on the back of Preston Stone, quarterback coming over from SMU. Didn't work out with the Ponies, unfortunately. Basically, Rhett Lashley had to choose Kevin Jennings over Preston Stone after that BYU loss. We were there in attendance for that. The offensive line just couldn't give Preston any time to matriculate the ball down the field. And so they went with Kevin Jennings, a much more mobile quarterback. He obviously leads them to the college football playoff and ACC championship berth as well. So Stone is finishing out his college career in Chicago, and I think he gives Northwestern's offense a huge boost. I'm very excited to see what he can do. It's been a little bit, I think, since Northwestern has had a really solid quarterback. The rest of the offense, though, is going to be a real work in progress. And Cam Porter returns as the lead running back. I like what he did last year, 501 yards, a couple of touchdowns. The offensive line just has one returner at left tackle. That's Caleb Tiernan. And then out wide, an exciting piece comes over from South Dakota State. We're going to talk about some South Dakota State transfers all throughout this preview. But Griffin Wild, who had almost 1,200 yards last season, 12 touchdowns in 2024, he's really the lone proven commodity for the Wildcats. So, guys, as we look at the chances and the hopes and dreams of Northwestern, Garrett, David Braun had a miraculous run 2 years ago, right? Goes 8-5 out of nowhere. Put that program back on the map. This last year went 4-8, and this year the over-under is set at just 3.5. Fair or foul for Northwestern to be the 18th ranked team here?
I think fair. I hate saying it, but somebody's got to come up and draw the short straw here. And I think it's fair to put them at the end of the conference right now. Look, if you want to try to paint with a little bit of a nicer picture here, you could look at this and say that maybe Preston Stone helps things turn around a little bit. Like, they need something going for them on offense. When your main guy's completing in the 50% for completion percentage last year, not really doing a whole lot, not very effective as a passer, you're not going to have a lot of success. I like guys like Cam Porter. I think Cam Porter's a good running back, and I think with a little bit more balanced offense, he might be able to flourish a little bit more. But we saw what happened last year when you try to ask him to do too much. Only runs for 500 yards, 6 touchdowns. Not a bad season by any means, but definitely has more in him. I think this is going to fall to how good can Preston Stone be. Can he be the guy that we were excited about with SMU? I mean, we talked about him a couple off seasons ago, talking about how big he could be, talking about how we were expecting him to ascend and be one of the best. It's a possibility that he could, turn out to be a pretty dang good quarterback. It's also a possibility that maybe we see some of the, analysis paralysis that we saw last year towards the beginning of the season with SMU, and then it doesn't end up panning out. So that's kind of my big thing that I'm looking at with Northwestern, is just how good can Preston Stone be to kind of help him get up off the mat.
When I look at the other side of the ball with the defense, I think that if the offense can just keep the defense resting on the sidelines for far more than what they were able to do last year, right? They were finished in the top 40 in the nation in run defense. So the defense wasn't necessarily losing them games, but they just were not able to score points. And so in my mind, if the offense can do a little bit of that heavy lifting, just be a threat to convert a third and medium, a third and long, that could go a long way. And we know that David Braun instills kind of a tough physical nature for his team. I'm just curious to see if they've got enough parts there to compete whatsoever. Trey, the over-under here is 3.5 wins. And I wrote in our preview that Vegas is basically telling you they've got 3 automatic wins: Western Illinois, Louisiana Monroe, and I think likely Purdue. I have Purdue as the bottom team in the conference. We're going to talk about them next. But beyond that, even with a guy like Stone or Griffin Wild out wide, it's hard to paint yourself a case where Northwestern can go to a bowl game.
Let me paint the more optimistic picture, though, I guess, because I really do like the defense. This is a defense that brings back 8 guys that were starting somewhere last year. I hate the term returning starters now because that's just so vague, but So when I say returning starters throughout all previous season, I just mean they were starting somewhere. So they've got 8 guys that held a starting role somewhere. Really like the defensive line, in particular with Aiden Hubbard out on the edge. That's a really nice piece to play with. And I think this is a team that might be the most talented that David Braun has had in his time at Northwestern. Just unfortunately, it's a brutal schedule, right? You guys highlighted it. Over under at 3.5 is definitely highlighting that. I would be inclined to take the over. I think that they are a talented enough team to jump up and get somebody when they're not paying attention. They've got that weird home field for one more year in Evanston, right there on the lake. So that's just another situation where somebody might not be paying attention. They can jump up and get them. I'd be inclined to take the over, but yeah, the path to the bowl is beating Tulane and UCLA, Tulane on the road, finding a way to steal one in addition to those 3 that you mentioned, Mitch. So yeah, it's an uphill battle for, I think, a pretty talented team, but somebody's got to lose these games. And I think Northwestern just kind of is going to find themselves on that short end more often than not this year because of the brutal schedule and because of the questions at wideout that they have surrounding all that side of the ball.
I think that's what's the frustrating part about these super conferences now is I actually think there's a big case to be made through NIL and the transfer portal that you are seeing more parity than ever. And we've talked about this on our channel before. And you're right, like someone just has to lose these games. And the fact that the schedule is as bad as it is, they open at Tulane, they host Oregon, they travel to Penn State all within the first 6 games, road trips to Nebraska, USC, and Illinois, and then home games against Michigan and Minnesota. Like the math just doesn't math here in 25 to my eyes. Now, could they get on a magical run a la 2023? Nobody saw the Wildcats coming in that season either. And you could argue, Trey, as you kind of did, they did that with a lot less talent. And so certainly I think there's a potential for Northwestern to sneak up and bite some teams that aren't expecting them. If you take that mental break against the Wildcats, you could easily find yourself losing this game. But yeah, Northwestern coming in at number 18 in our power ranking.